We are joined this morning by Dr. Kent Kaiser of the No Fuel Ban organization. We're talking about proposed legislation that would create a clean transportation standard and kind of what that all means. Dr. Kaiser, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
So let's just start right there with this proposed clean transportation standard that has been put into some legislation here in Minnesota. What would this aim to do, and what are some of the big keys?
Well, what it aims to do is actually eliminate liquid fuel from the state, or ban liquid fuel from the state by the year 2050. And it sounds absurd on its face, and every time I bring it up with someone, they're like, no way. But it is actually the case that this is legislation that has been considered for the last couple of years, and it just won't go away. They call it the Clean Transportation Standard, which makes it sound really nice because, of course, everybody likes something clean water, clean air, especially clean air today with all the smoke. But this Clean Transportation Standard is about really eliminating all liquid fuels and, of course, therefore driving people into electric vehicles. And we're not opposed to electric vehicles, by the way. Of course, we think people should be able to choose whatever kind of vehicle they would like to drive, but we don't think people should be forced into electric vehicles. And that's ultimately what this legislation would do.
And this mirrors kind of what has been done in states such as California, correct?
Yes, it's almost identical to what California did, only it ratchets it up a little bit more, actually. And there are a couple of other Western states that have considered it and are implementing something similar. But everyone in Minnesota knows we're not California. And so really the practicability of a clean transportation standard or a liquid fuel ban is really suspect. I mean, when you think about how far we have to drive if you live in greater Minnesota, or how far you have to drive in the cold if you live in Minnesota. I mean, we know people have tried to make a trip, out west with an electric vehicle, and you really have to map out where you're going to make sure that there are electric charging stations along the way. And the fact is that some of them don't work. And then the other thing is, during the cold, we know people have tried to go long distances with their electric vehicles, and it's just, really kind of a gamble as to exactly how far you're going to go because, of course, the batteries don't go as far in the cold. And I know one legislator actually had an electric vehicle who drove to Duluth and found that he had 40% less capacity to drive than he normally would.
So let's say that this does go through, they're talking about by 2050 getting rid of liquid fuels. What are some of the effects that could be potentially felt by families here?
Well, what we see is by the year 2040, we would expect that the price of a gallon of gas would go up by $4 per gallon. So that's not a total of $4. Imagine paying $7 today. That's what it would happen by 2040. The other thing is that, it really hits rural Minnesota from two different sides. You've got that additional price of gas for everyone, no matter where you're driving. But of course, if you're in rural Minnesota and you're having to drive long distances to get groceries or go to work or just do your job, then that hits you particularly hard. But the other thing is, think of the billions of dollars of both private and public taxpayer money that we've put into developing ethanol and biofuels. All of that would be just flushed down the drain because those fuels are liquid fuels that are not carbon zero either. So it really would hit rural Minnesota from a couple of different angles. And, I think policymakers in the Twin Cities don't necessarily understand exactly what it's like to be in rural Minnesota. I guess they think that one could just go out and get another job. They just don't understand what a huge disruption it would be to our rural economy and for Minnesotans everywhere for, of course, the price of gas or for the price of getting to work. And, the other thing is like just buying the vehicle. I looked at what the price of an electric vehicle was once when I saw it looked kind of cool on the road, and it was literally 3 times as much as my pickup truck. It's just not something that anybody can just go out and buy. So it's an absurd proposal, but unfortunately, it seems to have legs. Now, we do wish that more people more of the agricultural groups would get on board with us and help to fight it. There have been some, but it's been a little bit baffling that more of the rural ag economy players haven't been helping to lobby against it.
Now, in addition to California, has this sort of policy been enacted in other states?
Well, I think it's been enacted in Washington, Oregon. I think Nevada has considered it. Surprisingly enough, none of the eastern states have considered it. You know, you often think of this kind of policy taking hold in places like New York or Delaware or Maryland or something, but it hasn't at all. So it's been mostly mostly out of California. And unfortunately, Minnesota likes to follow California in some of these things. And so we need to really fight this.
Dr. Kaiser, let's talk just a little bit as we got a couple minutes left here about your organization. What are some of the things that you're doing? I know you were out at Farm Fest on Tuesday, kind of discussing this proposal. But what are some of the other things your organization is doing here to kind of get the word out?
Right. Well, over the last couple of years, we've actually done quite a bit. We've been at the state fair, and we've done aerial advertising, and we've, of course, Farm Fest is a great place to go, and I love Farm Fest. Had a lot of really good conversations there with policymakers, and unfortunately, of course, all the policymakers there are generally on my side. But it's good conversations, and reminding people that we need to continue to fight against this clean transportation as it's standard as it's called. Because a liquid fuel ban for Minnesota would be extremely costly and really impracticable. But no, in addition to that, we've got sign up on the website. So if people want to sign the petition, which we're sending to the governor, because really it's the governor who is over there was a working group that was set up to look at this clean transportation standard, which is mainly driven by people in the administration. So we really need the governor to get the word, and we need, of course, future governors, lieutenant governors, so on, to get the word from us. And so, it's Farm Fest and other places trying to reach out to those potential future governors and future lieutenant governors and the future policymakers so that they understand that there's real opposition to the idea of a liquid fuel ban.
And that website, if listeners want to learn more, is nofuelban.com. Dr. Kaiser, thank you so much for the time here today, and really, really insightful, good information. Glad we had you on, and look forward to potentially chatting again down the road.
Yes, let's do it. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate your time.